For 5 years, I thought if I loved him enough, he'd choose me. But I wasn't just married to him, I was married to his mother, and I was losing. These are the 5 regrets that finally made me walk away. This isn't a story about some monster mother-in-law. It's about a marriage that was never allowed to become its own thing, and how many pieces of myself I lost pretending that it was. My first, and probably biggest regret, is that I totally ignored red flags that were practically screaming at me from day one. When you're in love, you have this amazing ability to rationalize anything, don't you? You see something that feels off, and your brain immediately finds a way to explain it away. Before we were even married, we were apartment hunting. We found this beautiful place, a little further from his mother than we both liked. It had everything we wanted. He seemed to love it too, right up until he made the call. "I just want to see what Mom thinks," he said. Her verdict? Too far. She'd worry about him. And just like that, our dream apartment was gone. I told myself it was sweet that he valued her opinion. I didn't see it for what it was. He wasn't asking for an opinion. He was asking for permission. After we got married, the red flags just multiplied. His mother had a key to our house just for emergencies. But the emergencies seemed to happen daily, like her dropping off his favorite cookies or checking in while I was at work. I came home one day to find our entire living room rearranged. "Mom thought it would open up the space," he said, beaming, totally oblivious to how violated I felt. I wasn't just living with him. I was living in a showroom curated by his mother. The most painful part was the emotional boundary crossing. Any argument we had, any little disagreement, was immediately reported back to her. It felt like I was fighting a war on two fronts. I'd have this really private, intense moment with my husband, and a few hours later, I'd get a cold text from his mom, offering her advice that was so obviously one-sided. Our marriage had no privacy, no sacred space. It was a triangle, and I was always the odd one out. My feelings were always second to his mother's version of the story. I just regret not seeing this pattern for what it was. Not a close family, but a toxic enmeshment that was destined to suffocate us. This one's a bitter pill to swallow. I honestly believed that if I was a good enough wife, if I just loved him hard enough, if I was patient enough, he would eventually learn to put me first. I thought my love could be the thing that finally made him independent. So, I tried. God, did I try. I poured everything I had into being the perfect partner. I ran the household, supported his career, and bit my tongue during his mother's endless criticisms, all in the hope that one day he'd turn to me and say, "You're my family now. You come first." That day never came. Instead, everything I did was met with this soul-crushing invalidation. If I told him I was hurt by something his mother did, he'd jump to her defense. "She didn't mean it like that," he'd say. "You're just being too sensitive." My feelings weren't just ignored, they were flat out denied. I was being told, time and time again, that my reality was wrong and only his mother's intentions mattered. I was in an ego battle I never wanted to fight. Was I a good cook? Not by his mother's standards. Was I a good homemaker? Not according to her critiques, which he'd pass on to me as helpful suggestions. My worth as a wife felt like it was completely tied to his mother's approval. And that was a contest I could never win, because my very existence threatened her place in his life. I wasn't just failing to win over his mom. I was failing to earn my own husband's loyalty. And my deepest regret here is how much of myself I sacrificed trying to make that false hope come true. For years, I couldn't put a name to what was wrong. All I knew was that my husband seemed physically incapable of being a separate person from his mother. I later learned the term for it is enmeshment. It's this deep emotional dependency where his validation, his decisions, his whole sense of self was completely tied up in her. Have you ever felt like you're in a competition you never even signed up for? Drop a comment right now, and I promise, you are not alone in this. This enmeshment meant he was paralyzed when it came to making decisions. We couldn't decide on a vacation, a big purchase, or even what to do on a Saturday night without him running it by his mom. Her influence was a ghost in our home. It was everywhere. His whole idea of what a wife should be, how a house should run, was just a carbon copy of hers. It didn't matter what I wanted or needed. Everything I said was filtered through the lens of, well, what would mom think? This created an impossible power dynamic in our own home, where I was permanently stuck in second place. I wasn't his partner, I was the other woman. He'd spend hours at her house after work every single day, while I was at home, trying to build a marriage with a man who wasn't even there. He told her his good news first, his fears first. He lived his life with her first. A healthy marriage is about two people leaving their old families to create a new one. We never had a chance. The umbilical cord was never cut, it just stretched, and I was the one being strangled by it. I regret not understanding sooner that you can't build a life with half a man. I was married to the shell of a person whose heart and soul were still living in his childhood bedroom. You can only be a second-class citizen in your own home for so long before it starts to break you. My fourth regret is who I became trying to survive that marriage. I used to be a joyful, confident person. 5 years later, I was a walking ball of anxiety, resentment, and suspicion. I was always on edge, waiting for the next phone call from her, the next decision he'd make without me, the next time my feelings would be brushed off. The constant invalidation just destroyed my self-worth. I started to believe them, that I was too sensitive, that I was the problem. I started to question my own sanity. Was I crazy for wanting to be my husband's number one? Was I being unreasonable for wanting a say in my own home? The psychological toll was huge. I was living with chronic anxiety and a depression I just couldn't shake. I started doing things I'm not proud of. I'd check his phone, not for other women, but for the constant texts from his mom. I'd start fights, just desperately trying to get a reaction, to get him to finally choose a side, to choose me. But he never would, because choosing me meant disappointing his mother, and he was psychologically incapable of crossing that line. I regret letting that toxic dynamic poison me. I lost respect for him, sure, but the worst part is that I lost respect for myself. I didn't even recognize the angry, insecure woman staring back at me in the mirror. My final regret is the simplest one. I waited 5 years. 5 years of hoping, of fighting, and of shrinking myself to fit into a life that was never built for me. The end didn't come with a big, dramatic fight. It was a quiet, devastating moment of clarity. I was sitting on our couch one night, watching him on the phone with his mother for the third time, laughing about his day, and I realized with a sudden, cold horror, he was happy. In this dynamic that was absolutely destroying me, he was perfectly content. He didn't see a problem, because for him, there wasn't one. He had the love and support of two women, and the only cost was my sanity. And in that moment, I knew. I could not change him. I couldn't love him into being a partner. I couldn't fight for a man who wouldn't fight for our marriage. I didn't get married to compete for a man's love. I got married to be his partner, not his mother's rival. Walking away was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but my biggest regret is that I didn't do it sooner. Leaving wasn't giving up. It was a radical act of self-preservation. It was finally choosing myself, because I knew he never would. It was recognizing that some relationships just aren't compatible with a healthy, whole life. So if you're in a situation like this, please listen to me. You are not crazy. Your feelings are valid. And you absolutely deserve to be the sun in your own universe, not some forgotten planet in someone else's. Walking away isn't giving up. It's taking your life back. And that's a decision you will never, ever regret.